Today, we're diving into something deeply personal. How does your cultural background, your heritage, actually shape your journey toward healing? We're going to be looking specifically at recovery from eating disorders, especially when your world is this mix of different traditions and expectations. So, let's just start with a really big question, right? Is the path to healing the same for every single person? I mean, when it comes to something as intimate as our relationship with our bodies and with food, can a one-size-fits-all approach ever really work? To really explore this, we're going to look at a fascinating case study from Dubai. Now, this is a city that is basically defined by multiculturalism. It's a place where people from all over the world live and work together. And in an environment like that, the answer to our question it gets really complicated. It shows us just how much our background really does shape our struggles and our recovery. Okay, so let's get into it. While eating disorders are definitely a global issue, the way they show up can be incredibly local. The pressures someone feels in one part of the world are completely different from those somewhere else, which brings us to our case study. Here's the fundamental truth. Eating disorders do not discriminate. They can affect anyone. But culture is this incredibly powerful force that shapes the entire experience. It can dictate what an ideal body looks like, define our relationship with food, and even control whether we feel safe enough to speak up or if we just suffer in silence. And that brings us to what our source material calls the cultural complication. This is where we look at the really unique challenges that pop up when your journey to getting better has to cross cultural lines. And this slide really drives home the point that there is no single story here. For an expat, maybe the trigger is the stress and loneliness of being in a new country. For a local resident, it could be the immense weight of generations of tradition. And for someone in a multicultural family, it might just be the stress of trying to balance two totally different worlds on their dinner plate every night. And the thing that ties it all together is this powerful fear of stigma, of judgment from the very communities they belong to. So this visualizes that complex web of pressures. You have these outside forces, like cultural beauty standards, but then you also have these deep internal conflicts, like trying to reconcile family food traditions with a restrictive mindset. It ends up being this really lonely battle, fought on so many fronts, and often in total silence because of that fear of judgment. And here's our really stark reality. Research shows that cultural stigma is one of the biggest reasons people put off getting help, sometimes for years. And that delay, it doesn't just prolong the suffering. It can actually make recovery so much harder. This is why understanding the cultural piece isn't just a nice to have, it is absolutely essential. So, if culture is a key part of the problem, then it has to be a key part of the solution, right? This leads us to a newer model of care, one that's built on a foundation of deep, genuine cultural respect. The solution really centers around something called culturally adapted therapy. The idea isn't to ignore or try to override a person's culture. No, it's the opposite. It's about weaving their traditions, their beliefs, and their values directly into the fabric of the healing process itself, which makes recovery feel authentic to them. So, how does this actually work in the real world? Well, it's a whole approach. The therapy itself is adapted to line up with a patient's values, not to challenge them. Support is offered in multiple languages because healing shouldn't get lost in translation. Often, the family is brought into the conversation because they are so central to a person's cultural world. Even the nutrition plans are tailored to respect dietary traditions instead of just imposing foreign ones. And it's all integrated, meaning the entire team is on the same page, working together. Now, this all sounds great in theory, but what happens when you actually put it into practice? Let's take a look at the real-world outcomes when care is truly built on understanding. The results are pretty powerful. When a person feels truly seen and respected, that shame and stigma around asking for help starts to fade. They feel more comfortable opening up about sensitive topics. Their recovery plan isn't some foreign concept being forced on them. It actually aligns with their life and their values. And this leads to better relationships, not just with food, but with family and a new kind of confidence to navigate their world. Because ultimately, the goal isn't just to fix a problem. It's to help someone build a recovery that feels authentic, respectful, and truly sustainable. A new, healthy life that works within their cultural context, not in spite of it. So, let's zoom out for a second. While we've been focusing on one city, the core lesson here is universal. You really cannot separate healing from culture. They are completely intertwined. This brings us to a really powerful final thought. Simply acknowledging that culture is part of the healing process, that alone is a revolutionary step. It shifts the entire conversation from asking, what's wrong with you, to asking, what is your world like and how can we support you within it? And that leaves us with a question, not just for clinics or therapists, but for all of us. How can we, in our families, in our workplaces, in our friendships, how can we create spaces where healing is truly possible for everyone, no matter where they come from? What's one small step we could take? Thanks for joining me for this one.